Now, due to swimming pool closures, many of you will have been out of the water for quite some time, but finally you may be starting that process of getting back swimming. But swimming after a long break or a long layoff can be quite daunting. You may be wondering whether you'll still be able to swim with others, whether you'll still have that feel for the water, whether you'll still be able to go as far, whether you'll still be able to swim full stop, amongst many other questions. Well, that is why I'm making this video today, to answer a few of those questions and give you a few tips for those first few swims. Now, I've had a number of sustained periods of time out of the pool over the years, and pretty much every time I jump back in for that first swim, I feel like Michael Phelps to begin with. I never learn. Pretty much every time I think to myself, maybe I've not lost anything. Maybe I'm swimming just as fast. I feel incredibly smug. And then boom, about 200, 400 meters in, my shoulders feel like they've exploded and my ego comes shattering back down to earth. I'm sure many of you experienced that feeling before. And that leads me nicely on to my first point today, which is to begin step by step. Now, even after just a few weeks out of the water, you do lose some of your conditioning for swimming. In particular, I'm talking about your strength in your shoulders, but also some of those smaller muscles that do some of the stabilizing in your arm and your shoulder. Start out too hard or by doing too much, and you could find you end up having to take more time out of the water again. So I typically suggest that you actually start by halving your normal swim distance or duration for the first couple of weeks and then gradually build up from there. It's also just better to start out by doing less in some of those sessions, but more frequently. So then you're never having too much time out of the water. For instance, you swim 1,500 meters every other day rather than doing simply 2 lots of 3-kilometer swims. That way, you actually find it a little bit more enjoyable because you're in control, your technique's improving, rather than you simply surviving your swims. And your main focus for these first couple of weeks should really be on your technique. A common mistake is to jump back in the water and feel like you need to gain back that fitness as quickly as possible. That will come with time, but swimming inefficiently is going to slow you down far more in the long run. So use this first couple of weeks as you're building things up gradually to do some drills, to do some sculling, and work on that technique. Sculling is actually a great one for now because not only does it help you to improve your catch and feel for the water, but it also helps to steadily strengthen your shoulders up, as we discussed before. Drills also just allow you to break the stroke down, focus on specific areas, and essentially just perfect your stroke and technique. If you'd like some ideas on some drills and some sculls to do, and also how to do them, we've actually got videos on them over on our channel already. I'll drop the links to those in the description just down below. So you've probably got the picture now. You want to keep everything relatively easy to begin with. Even as you start increasing the distances and the duration, you want to keep it to this nice aerobic level, a nice casual and comfortable pace, basically that zone 1, zone 2, or effort level of 1 to 4 out of 10. I tend to talk of it like you're laying the foundations for a house. That aerobic work is the foundations, then that speed work, that harder work comes at a later date on top of that. Skip out that aerobic work and cut straight to the faster, harder work, and it can all end up toppling over. Now, to make sure that you do this correctly, you can wear a watch, monitor your paces and your heart rates, basically make sure that you're keeping to that nice, easy aerobic level. I will admit, it can be quite hard to stay patient and keep it to that nice, easy aerobic level and not cut straight to the harder work, but do it correctly now and you reap the rewards later. You can also think about planning and tracking your training. This is a nice way of making sure that you do follow some of those previous points that I was just talking about and not getting carried away with yourself. I know for sure myself that if I don't plan my training, then I just end up competing, racing, and going after PBs in pretty much every other swim session. Also, by tracking some of your training, it can be quite motivating because hopefully you'll see yourself progressing with each of those swims with time. Even though you're keeping it at a nice aerobic pace, you may see that you're just repping slightly faster per 100 or just comfortably going a little bit further in each of those sessions and so on. Well, talking of motivation, it can actually be really hard to break that motivation barrier initially and jump back in for that first swim. When you haven't done something for so long, it can be really daunting because you know it's going to be hard when you start back. And the longer you're out, the harder it gets. Now, I know this sounds very materialistic, but why not treat yourself for that first swim and bring something exciting to it? Perhaps it's a new pair of goggles, a new costume, maybe even a new watch, or perhaps it's simply just going to a new pool somewhere you haven't swum before. And by doing that, you'll have something exciting that you're focusing on, and before you know it, you're back swimming and back in the groove. But there we go, there's a bunch of tips there today that hopefully get you back swimming, enjoying it, and things to focus on. Do let us know if you're in a similar position at the moment, if you've been struggling, and do let us know if any of these tips do help. Drop them in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed today's video, give it a like. Don't forget to give us a follow on social media and a subscribe just down below.